Storm's Airvolth salt spray stung Captain Marcus Thorne's weathered face as he stood on the dock, watching the small supply boat approach Crescent Island. 3 years of self-imposed exile on this remote lighthouse station had suited him perfectly. No crew to lose, no lives depending on his decisions, no one to disappoint when the storms came. The previous keeper had finally retired, leaving Marcus with an unwelcome problem. He needed someone to maintain the lighthouse while he managed the island's operations. Alina Rosewood stepped off the boat with nothing but a worn canvas bag and eyes that held their own storms. She was younger than he'd expected, perhaps 28, taped with dark auburn hair that caught the afternoon light, and a way of moving that spoke of someone accustomed to making herself small. It's perfect for his needs, he decided coldly. Miss Rosewood, he said without preamble, the rules are simple. You maintain the lighthouse beacon from sunset to sunrise. You keep the lens clean and the oil burning. The supply boat comes monthly with provisions. We don't take meals together, we don't make conversation, and we don't interfere in each other's business. You have the keeper's quarters in the tower. I live in the main house. Our paths need not cross. Alina nodded quietly, her fingers tightening on her bag strap. I understand completely, Captain Thorne. I prefer solitude myself. Something in her voice, a carefully controlled tremor, made him look at her more closely. She met his gaze briefly, and he saw a flash of pain quickly shuddered away. Good, he thought. She's running from something too. That would make their arrangement easier. As weeks passed, their system worked flawlessly. Marcus maintained his rigid schedule of weather monitoring and supply management, while Alina kept the lighthouse running with quiet efficiency. He caught glimpses of her sometimes, a figure in the lamp room at dusk, shadow tending something behind the tower that he deliberately chose not to investigate. She left his meals on the porch as arranged, always perfectly prepared, never with a note or attempt at contact. It was exactly what he'd wanted. Invisible competence. Yet sometimes, late at night, when the beams swept across the dark waters, he found himself wondering about the woman who tended the light while he slept, and why someone so young had chosen to disappear to the edge of the world just as he had. The first sign of trouble came with the morning's weather report, promising something neither of them could face alone. Lighthouse in the dark. Hurricane warning crackled through Marcus's radio just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Category 3, arriving by midnight, with winds that could shatter the lighthouse lens if the shutters failed. He'd weathered storms alone before, but this beacon protected a shipping lane. Lives depended on its light cutting through the chaos. Alina appeared at his door before he could seek her out, her face pale but determined. The lens housing is already rattling, she said without preamble. The mounting bolts are loose, and if the glass breaks, ... ships die on the rocks, he finished grimly. We need to secure it from inside the lamp room. It'll mean working together through the storm. She nodded, and for the first time in months, they climbed the lighthouse stairs side by side. The narrow spiral forced them close, her shoulder brushing his arm, her breathing quick with exertion and something else he couldn't name. At the top, wind already howled through gaps in the storm shutters, while the massive Fresnel lens caught the last rays of daylight like trapped fire, working by lamplight as the storm strengthened. They reinforced the lens housing with spare cable and wooden braces. Elena's hands proved surprisingly strong and sure, handling tools with confidence that surprised him. When she stretched to reach a high bolt, her shirt rode up, revealing a glimpse of smooth skin that made him lose focus entirely. Captain, she said softly. The wrench. He handed it to her, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The contact sent electricity through him that had nothing to do with the lightning now splitting the sky outside. She felt it too. He saw the slight tremor in her hands, the way her breath caught. Why did you really come here, Alina? The question escaped before he could stop it. She was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, my family believed. They owned me. Every choice, every breath, every dream, all theirs to control. I chose the furthest place I could find from that life. And you? She asked, securing another bolt. Why does a decorated naval captain hide on a rock in the middle of nowhere? The storm howled louder, and in its voice he heard echoes of that terrible night 3 years ago. Because the last time I was responsible for lives, I failed them. My crew trusted me, and I led them into a squall that killed half of them. Her hand covered his unexpectedly, warm and real in the flickering light. But you're here now, keeping ships safe. In that moment, with the storm raging around their small circle of light, the walls he'd built began to crack. Part 3. Secrets in the Garden broke calm and golden, the hurricane having blown itself out to sea. Marcus stood on the lighthouse gallery, breathing the salt-sweet air, and trying to convince himself that the intimacy of the storm-filled night had been an aberration. Below, he could see Elena hanging storm-tattered laundry on a line behind. The keeper's quarters, moving with the same quiet efficiency that marked all her actions. It was when he circled the island, checking for storm damage, that he discovered her secret. Tucked into a sheltered cove on the island's lee side, hidden from his house by a rocky outcrop, flourished a garden that shouldn't exist. Tomatoes heavy with fruit climbed driftwood trellises, herbs perfumed the air, and flowers he couldn't name created splashes of color against the gray stones. You weren't supposed to find this. Elena's voice came from behind him, resigned rather than defensive. He turned to face her, noting the dirt under her fingernails, the way she'd rolled up her sleeves. The rules were clear, no personal projects. Yes, they were. She moved past him to deadhead some roses, her movements careful and practiced. But the seeds were already here, scattered by birds and tide. I just ... encouraged them. He watched her gentle hands coaxing life from unlikely soil. This must have taken months. Longer. She knelt beside a patch of struggling seedlings, her voice growing softer. When my family controlled everything I ate, wore, said, even thought, having something that grew because I tended it, something that was mine alone, ... It kept me sane during the worst times. Without thinking, Marcus knelt beside her, his larger hands joining hers in the dark earth. Show me how to help. They worked in companionable silence as the sun climbed higher, and Marcus felt something. Long frozen, beginning to thaw. When Elena reached across him for a watering can, her hair brushed his cheek, carrying the scent of lavender and something uniquely her. Their eyes met and held, and he saw his own longing reflected back. "Elena?" he said roughly, his voice catching on her name. She leaned closer. Close enough that he could see golden flecks in her brown eyes, close enough to feel the warmth of her breath. Marcus ... The kiss was inevitable as the tide, soft at first, then deeper, as 3 years of isolation and loneliness poured out between them. Her hands fisted in his shirt while his tangled in her hair. And for the first time since his world had shattered, Marcus Thorne felt truly alive. When they finally broke apart, breathless and shaking, the garden around them seemed to pulse with new life. When walls crumbled next weeks, blurred together like watercolors in rain, days were spent maintaining their careful routine, but evenings found them in the garden, sharing stories while their hands learned the shape of each other through careful touches and stolen kisses. Elena showed him the patience required to coax life from salt-strained soil, while Marcus taught her to read the subtle signs of weather in cloud formations and wind patterns. Their first real kiss among the moonflowers had led to others deeper, hungrier embraces that left them both trembling with want. Marcus hadn't touched a woman since before the accident, hadn't wanted to, but Elena drew responses from him that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The way she melted against him when he traced the line of her throat, how her breath hitched. When his hands spanned her waist, the soft sounds she made when he kissed the sensitive spot behind her ear. "We're playing with fire," he murmured one evening, as she sat between his legs, her back pressed to his chest while they watched the sunset. "Paint the sky crimson." "Maybe," she said, turning in his arms to face him, her eyes dark with promise. "But I've been cold for so long, Marcus." "Haven't you?" The supply boat arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 days early, and carrying an unwelcome passenger. Elena froze at her kitchen window as a tall, sharp-suited man stepped onto the dock beside Captain Perry, his pale eyes scanning the island with proprietary interest. "Who is that?" Marcus asked, though something cold was already settling in his chest. "My brother." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Jonathan, he's found me." Marcus watched the man's imperious gesture toward the lighthouse, the way captain. Perry suddenly seemed nervous and accommodating and understood immediately. "What does he want?" "To take me home. To marriage with his business partner. To a life where every breath is measured and controlled." She turned to him then, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I won't go back, Marcus. I can't." "Then you won't." The words came out harder than he'd intended, but he meant them absolutely. 3 years of hiding, of keeping himself isolated from connection and vulnerability, and this woman had slipped past every defense he'd built. He wouldn't let anyone take her away. That night, as Jonathan Rosewood settled into the guest room, with obvious distaste for the island's simplicity, Marcus made his choice. He found Elena in the lighthouse, tears streaming down her face as she polished the lens with shaking hands. "Elena." He took the cloth from her hands, pulled her against him. "Look at me. He'll make me go," she whispered against his throat. "He has legal papers, family obligations. I'm not strong enough to fight him. Then we'll fight him together." Marcus tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "A love. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was afraid. Afraid of failing someone else I care about. Double quotes, Marcus. I love you," he repeated, the words growing stronger with repetition. "And I won't let him take you anywhere you don't want to go." The kiss that followed was desperate, hungry, full of 3 years of loneliness, and the fear of losing this unexpected gift they'd found in each other. New. Don Jonathan Rosewood's ultimatum came with the morning tide. Elena would return with him on the afternoon boat, or he would use his considerable legal and financial resources to make life very difficult for both of them. Marcus listened to the threats from his position on the lighthouse gallery, watching the man pace the dock like a caged predator, his expensive shoes slipping on the salt-stained boards. "You're making a mistake, Captain Thorne," Jonathan called. "Up. My sister is not equipped for this kind of isolation. She needs structure, guidance, protection from her own poor judgment." "What she needs," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly in the still air, "is the freedom to choose her own life." "Something you've never given her?" Elena appeared at his side, her hand finding his with steady certainty. "I choose to stay, Jonathan. I choose Marcus. I choose this life, and I choose never to be owned by anyone again." "You're being ridiculous." "Elena, this infatuation with a washed-up military man will pass. Come home, marry David Sterling as planned, and no." The single word rang out like a bell, and Marcus felt Elena's hand tighten on his. "I'm done being a piece on your chessboard. I found love here, real love, and a man who sees me as an equal partner, not a possession to be managed." Jonathan's face flushed with anger, but before he could respond, Captain Perry cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Begging your pardon, sir, but the lady seems clear about her wishes. And Captain Thorne's got quite a reputation in these waters. Keeps this shipping lane safe for dozens of vessels. The Coast Guard wouldn't take kindly to anyone causing him trouble." The afternoon sun slanted golden through the lighthouse lens as the supply boat disappeared over the horizon. Taking Jonathan Rosewood and his threats back to the mainland, Marcus and Elena stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching the wake fade into the endless blue. "No regrets?" Marcus asked, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Only that we waited so long to stop being invisible to each other," Elena replied, turning in his arms to face him. "I want to expand the garden, maybe add some guest quarters for travelers who need refuge. Make this place a real haven." "Our haven," he corrected, sliding his grandmother's ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the small diamond catching fire in the lighthouse beam. "Marry me properly when the circuit judge makes his rounds next month?" "Yes," she laughed, the sound bright as sea spray. "Yes to everything. Yes to the garden. Yes to helping others. Yes to building something beautiful together." As the lighthouse beam began its nightly sweep across the darkening waters, Marcus Thorne finally understood that some storms don't come to destroy, they come to wash away everything that no longer serves, leaving space for new growth. And in The garden Alina had created from salt and dreams, their love would flourish like moonflowers opening to embrace the night.